Patrick Pfingsten standing by. I don't agree with a lot of what Chip Roy from Texas says, but I find myself agreeing with him more and more. And Patrick, you probably heard this. After the deal was struck to keep the government open for 2 more weeks in March, Chip Roy took to the floor in the House.
Madam Speaker, the American people are tired of getting a complete lack of representation from their representatives. Nobody in this country looks at Congress and says, wow, heck of a job, guys and gals. Who would do that? Would we do that? By the way, it does not matter who's sitting in the speaker's seat or who's got the majority. We keep doing the same stupid stuff. Now, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have no problem with wide open borders endangering the people that I represent. None. And I will continue to speak to my colleagues because...
Also be in order. The gentleman will address his comments to the chair.
Well, Madam Speaker, I am addressing my comments to the chair.
The House will be in order.
Well, Democrats a little touchy, huh?
No kidding. I was just like, don't...
I mean, just let him finish.
I know. All she said is, please address the speaker.
Yeah. Well,
now tell me who to address.
And they're yapping at him. Let him finish. He was making points, and his points are exactly right.
Yeah.
We just keep doing this. He didn't say Democrats keep doing the stupid stuff. He said we keep doing stupid stuff.
A couple of things, if I may.
Sure, of course.
The Freedom Caucus arguing for good government is like an arsonist saying I don't need matches.
I get you. But keep in mind, that's inside baseball. What he is saying,
sure.
what the basic human beings in America, the public is hearing, is Congress is stupid. So get your act together and get your job done. That's the thing that disturbs me, Patrick. I find myself agreeing with Chip Roy. Congress
is very stupid, and I think we know that. But yes, Democrats are also very touchy about the immigration issue, and they don't. Washington Democrats don't have an answer on border security. They say they support border security. They say they support comprehensive immigration reform, but this is a two-party problem. You know, Republicans have zero interest in putting any money toward the migrant crisis. And I've told you this before, Steve. I've told Andrea this before, that the migrant crisis and the illegal immigration crisis are two different things. The people who are coming here illegally are not the people who are being shipped to Chicago on buses. Those are people who are seeking asylum, who are here legally. And the Democrats don't want to fix the illegal immigration problem, and Republicans don't want to fix the asylum problem.
And in an election year,
we are spinning our wheels.
Right.
And in a presidential election year, and some of these people have even said it out loud. They go, well, we don't want to help anything that would make Biden look good in the White House, or we don't want to do anything to counter Trump or counter anything that would help our side. In other words, we're not interested in helping the American people, this urgent problem. We're interested in keeping our jobs. Mm-hmm. So that's what everybody's got to wake up to. You got to vote people out who care about their jobs more than they care about you. And by the way, with very few exceptions, that's all 545 of them.
That's like it's the Brian Cox line from Succession, one that didn't involve the F word, where he said, "You are not serious people. Congress are not serious right now. They are not serious people," and that's Republicans and Democrats.
Patrick Pfingsten, how do we get the Illinoize?
Go to theillinoize.com. That's ILLINOIZE, and click for the newsletter up in the top right of the page. And I write about Illinois politics and government every day.
Let's go through some lists here because you got to keep an eye on Springfield. You got to watch Springfield.
Oh, yeah.
You know, every family's got a kid. You got to watch that kid. Mm-hmm. Oh, you got to watch that kid.
When they're there.
So in a year where everybody's go Trump, Biden, Trump, Republicans, Democrats, now you got to watch Springfield. All right, so let's go through some of this. You talked about migrant funding, but what's Pritzker saying or not saying?
I think it's not so much what Pritzker is saying. I think it's what the legislature is willing or able to pass. The governor is shifting money around as much as he can to address the crisis. You know, he kind of pulled $160 million out of the DHS budget, Department of Human Services budget, which was kind of smoke and mirrors. It was a little bit here, a little bit there. 40 million of that is a grant we hope we get from the federal government, but it's still a real financial piecemeal act from the state. It's probably going to take the legislature to pass what's called a supplemental appropriation because our tax revenues are higher than expected, so they think there's a little more money to play with, to move around. Some that was already in the budget from other places. The issue is that the legislature has zero interest in passing that right now because it's such a hot button issue. You're not going to get any Republican votes for it, and especially in the city, members of the Black Caucus are particularly upset about sending a lot of extra money to the migrant crisis because essentially their argument is that you need to be investing that money in our neighborhoods, in our communities, the ones that have been hurt and economically depressed for decades. So why don't you help us instead of helping these people who are being shipped here on a bus?
In other words, if there's more money, take care of your home first before you take care of visitors.
Absolutely.
And that's the point they're attempting to make. Look, the Democrats have a lot of things to answer for, and we're going to do that with Patrick when he comes back in just a second. He has plans. He's got a life. Too bad. You got to hang on with us for a second.
I'll hang on for you forever, Steve.
You're good, man. Stand by.
Can I ask him a migrant question before?
Yeah.
Okay, so Patrick, so here's my question, and this is a very basic, elementary type question, but as a taxpayer for the state of Illinois, we are appropriating so much money to deal with the migrant crisis. I know the state set aside more than $600 million. You were talking about the $160 million that was appropriated, or that's going to have to go into this new appropriations bill. But as just a taxpayer, will our taxes go up, or will that money be taken from other funds like the infrastructure fund or anything like that to help deal with this crisis?
It's hard to say.
Okay.
The migrants and on the state level, the migrant crisis itself won't increase our tax rate. City voters, city property taxpayers could end up paying more. I mean, the city is so completely ill-equipped for this massive influx of people. They're going to have to come up with the money somewhere. The state right now, like in this current fiscal year, has some money it can move around, has a little extra money coming in that wasn't budgeted. That's not going to go on for a long time, though, because there's a projected deficit in the next fiscal year, which starts in July. So it's not like the spigot's going to keep running.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the problem that we run into, is that these are people who are showing up in Chicago with nothing but Crocs on their feet and a t-shirt and sleeping in buses and trying to find a meal, and they're not allowed to work, and they have nowhere to go, and they're humans, but money doesn't grow on trees.
Right.
So,
no, it's a terrible. Listen, it's a terrible problem that needs leadership that doesn't exist. And the mayor's word salad that doesn't change anything because the mayor has said nothing of substance about this and continues to say nothing of substance
about anything since he's become mayor.
I don't disagree. Now let's move on here. Abortion amendment. Let's talk about the law here for a second. The Supreme Court says they strike down Roe v. Wade. Where do state rights trump what the Supreme Court says? Because the topic here is, can Illinois enshrine the right to an abortion in the Constitution?
Yeah, so the Supreme Court essentially kicked abortion back to the states, making it a state issue. So that Indiana can pass a different law than Illinois, and Illinois, of course, has the most progressive abortion policy in the country, basically. And there are a number of Democrats, the governor included, who are making their belief that Illinois is a pro-choice haven. They want it to be enshrined in the Constitution to make it incredibly difficult to ever change. There's There's also a political angle to that, that they believe that a pro-choice amendment will drive out Democrat votes, especially in the suburbs. And there's some internal logic and questions that they're asking themselves of, do we really need this in 2024 where Joe Biden's probably going to win Illinois by 1 million votes again?
Right.
Or do we wait until 2026, which is typically not as good of a year for Democrats? So,
this is the cynicism of politics, because if this was truly something you eat, sleep, and breathe by, and you believe with all your fiber that a woman's body should be a woman's choice, and you need to enshrine that in the Constitution and make it protective,
Right.
well, then you don't get to be a Democrat that goes, well, let's wait till it's a bigger political
Right.
advantage to us.
Right.
I hate to say that that's the reality of the situation. I mean, there's also, the governor started a big nonprofit political activist arm called Think Big, and it's been pushing these pro-choice referenda and ballot issues around the country, and do they want to focus those resources in a place like Illinois where abortion's not going anywhere? Or do they want to focus it in a swingier state like Ohio last year, that would be less, that would be, where that right, that belief, that policy would be more up in the air.
One more before we run out of time, and that's the budget. This is always a big deal. People can snooze on it because it does get technical, but who's going to lose money?
It's not so much who's going to lose money, because we're going to lose money, I guess, because the government takes the taxes out of our paychecks.
The funding that moves
no,
around.
I mean, that's the issue that we're running into, is the state spending more than it ever has this year, over $50 billion. And revenue projections are going down. We're expecting less tax revenue next year than we're expecting this year. And you have huge Democratic majorities in the House and Senate that have become more progressive in recent years, and they want to spend money on everything. They want to expand spending by billions and billions of dollars. And the question is, do the leaders, does the governor, do they have the gumption to tell these members, sorry, we don't have the cash for that? And as these progressives build up power and equity in Springfield, are they just going to be able to put a stop to things if they don't get what they want in a budget? We could have a disaster come May and June if Democrats aren't on board with each other on a budget.
Yeah. Budget addresses February 21st. I want to ask you about the Invest in Kids program, because that went away at the end of the year, but now some Republicans are thinking that they can revive the Invest in Kids program.
It's a long shot. You remember, this is the private school. The teachers unions called it a voucher program, even though it's not a voucher. It wasn't a voucher program. It was a tax credit for people that were able to get scholarships, give scholarships to heavily African American and Latino kids to attend private schools, usually a lot of Christian schools, and it's going to go away, essentially. And the teachers unions fought this issue so heavily that it's hard to imagine Democrats get on board with it. And the Archdiocese said just this week that they're going to close a couple of grade schools in heavily Hispanic areas, and is my understanding that those schools were getting a lot of Invest in Kids students. So there's going to be a snowball here, I think.
It's Patrick Pfingsten. You can also read about the attempt for the legislators to form their own union. Well, thank God we need another union.
It's for staff. It would be for staff. House staff wanted to form a union. The House passed a bill that would allow these political appointees to create their own union. They sent the bill over to the Senate, and the Senate basically laughed. So
yeah, I listen. I am a union member. You're a union member. The Screen Actors Guild.
Yeah, we are.
And AFTRA. But let's not be ridiculous. All right. Now, again, to get the Illinoize, what do we do?
TheIllinoize.com. That's ILLINOIZE.com. Click to subscribe to the newsletter and get our stuff every day.
Thank you,
Patrick, it is great. Patrick, though, before you go, tell everybody how many days lawmakers will be in session between now and March 19th, the primary.
I think it's 12 now.
Oh my God! I hope they get a nap.
They were scheduled to be in 3 days this week. The Senate was in 3 days. The House was in 2. They're back on February 6th, then another week in February, 1 week or 3 days in March, and then the primary is March 19th.
And keep in mind, there's no term limits on a governor in Illinois, so Pritzker can stay in that chair until he decides it is the right time to run for president.
There will be serious questions about Pritzker's political future here soon, because he wants to run for president in 2028. So does he want to do it as a sitting governor, or does he want to step aside in January of 2027 and start a campaign for president a month later?
I don't know. James Carville, any thoughts?
I'm totally from Bucks.
Yeah, me too.